Alright, Shell. One of the things that I've loved doing over the years is picking on Democrats, and it's always automatically assumed that I'm a Republican, when in fact I'm not. I never have been. I have always been a Constitutional Party member. And yes, there are still a few of us dinosaurs around. And picking on Democrats may not be right. I mean, it's, kind of too easy. But AOC makes it even easier. I mean, this woman's got blondes telling AOC jokes, so let's have a little fun with her without being insulting, or too insulting, I guess. Let's have a little fun with her. If you think about it, AOC's latest thing with the green energy, which she has pushed left and right all along, and seems to know very little in reality about. Ah, there goes that air conditioner. Yeah. Oh boy. More electricity. Alright, so she, a couple of days ago, or within the past day or two, said that not using renewable energy was the cause for all of the energy problems, the blackouts in Texas and Oklahoma and so forth right now, when in reality, this is a snowstorm that snapped power lines, because they still use above ground power lines. That ain't Yankee country where, they've been running underground conduit for a few years and got a head start on that. We're talking Texas, where it's usually warm and ice doesn't usually snap power lines. And so far, I want you to notice that I haven't mentioned that, some of those wind generators were froze up solid. Some of those solar cells were covered with snow. And I haven't mentioned that the switchgear coming away from those green energy plants leaves something to be desired, because most of them cheaped out on their switchgear really badly. And it's not very far outside of my field of expertise, because my field of expertise requires electricity, lots of it. But it's hilarious that she's blaming it on not using green energy, when green energy, okay, it ain't working so good right now. And she's not looking at, oh, wait a minute, the real cause of nothing working right now is the power line snapped from the weight of the ice on them, because they didn't put in heavy enough power lines for it. And as far as rolling the grid over to where those green energy areas are, yeah, a lot of switchgear got popped in the past 24 hours. I've been reading a lot of my friends' stuff and looking at blown switchgear all over the place. So, the woman's kind of nutty on that one. And then she's all into green energy for cars, electric cars. Apparently she's never seen a lithium mine. That's far more damaging than any pipeline or oil well ever will be. And apparently she doesn't know the dangers of lithium. She's never seen people intentionally light up lithium or make batteries blow up. She doesn't know that the battery incident with the, what was it, first or second generation Prius, first and second generation Prius and the Teslas, they had some battery problems. GM had some battery problems with that experimental Oldsmobile. But let's focus right there for a minute on the Prius batteries. The wonderful lithium batteries that, after they catch fire in your car and somebody, usually the fire department, puts them out, and the tow truck driver gets it hooked up, it catches fire again. Woof. One here in Florida a couple of years ago caught fire 3 times put it out, caught fire again, put it out, caught fire again. Why? Because when certain types of lithium, I don't want to say 1, 2, or 3, get exposed to air, they tend to become really hot and they like to create flames. It's as simple as that. And that's why a lot of the Samsung batteries were exploding a few years ago. It wasn't just because of the bad connections inside. Some of them were exploding from air leaks. And those batteries, I don't think any of them are actually made by Samsung. I think they're all probably made in China or someplace where they just don't care about their work, their quality of workmanship. I mean, literally in the spectrum of stuff I'm tinkering with now, the nerds are joking about, man, I got the good shit, it's out of Japan, it ain't no Chinese shit. That's a pretty good illustration of where reality is at. And another aspect, you know, she wants to get rid of fossil fuels altogether. Okay. First, you've got to come up with a viable solution, one that could be employed today that's proven to work. Now, so far in the renewable energy market, solar and wind, they've been proven to be unreliable, time and time and time again. In the world of electric cars, yeah, okay, I'll go as far as they're a little bit dangerous, not much more dangerous than a regular car. But what is that depleted cobalt or depleted lithium do to the soil after it's been put in the landfills or basically back into the earth? Far more damage per gram than per 10,000 gallons of gasoline burned. And there's another pet peeve of mine. I mean, the entire, you know, green energy movement for decades is, I mean, they've banned diesel outboards, they've banned diesel motorcycles. That's why I never opened up a factory to produce diesel motorcycles, even though I had actually made 5 of them, the full dress tour bikes getting 140 miles to the gallon of diesel. There's no disgruntlement. I understand the EPA just gets in the way. They get in the way of gas engine people too. You can't make a lawnmower engine and get it EPA approved without spending over $1 million. That's something that should be addressed by government, because there's a lot of engines out there, not just in the motorcycle world, and not just in the automotive world, that okay, I'm going off on a tangent there, but they've got way too many parts, and all of those parts end out in the landfill, and the more that can go wrong, the more that will go wrong, the more it breaks, the more that ends out in the trash pile. You know what I'm saying? But let's cover diesel versus gasoline. Okay, so we'll take my old Chevy C10 pickup that gets about 12 miles to the gallon if it's lucky, and we'll compare it to not really new but not really old Ford F350 1 ton, twice the weight, half ton versus 1 ton, even though I know it's only really about 1,000 pounds difference. Actually, no. It was closer to 2,000 pounds difference between those two trucks. But anyway, who cares? The gasoline engine, horsepower output for horsepower output, or torque output for torque output, you're getting half the mileage of a diesel. And the diesel, really, you can breathe diesel exhaust. If I was to start a diesel engine in here right now and leave it running with all the doors closed and the AC off so there's no ventilation, it would shut off before I would die. With a gasoline engine, quite the opposite is true. I would die before it shut off, before it starved itself for air. Um, and diesel, it's only really noxious emission, and that's all it is noxious, is the carbon soot that's put out by, yeah, you got your fuel turned up a little bit too much in your rolling coal, and that's usually because somebody cheaped up, and instead of using a supercharger, they used a little turbo that takes a minute to spool up. And in the old days, you know, even without a supercharger, no problem. You got a little burst of soot when you first took off, and it went clear. And all diesels will do that. You don't need a million computers to run a diesel efficiently, and you don't need to turn your fuel up, you know, so much that you're rolling coal and risking a cracked piston just to get a little bit of power. You can do the right thing and put on a supercharger, or you can do the sort of good thing and put on a turbo. You definitely don't need diesel exhaust fluid. That is the biggest joke the industry has ever come up with, and it wasn't the industry that came up with it, it was some politician's nephew. That's my opinion, and it's somewhat verifiable, so I'm going to go with it. Alright, but they always compare, when you read these statistics, they always compare gallon for gallon output. And they never factor in that the diesel is getting roughly twice the fuel mileage of the comparable gas engine. Never. None of them take note of that. None of them take note of gasoline engines really do put out toxic emissions. They always have, they always will. And adding ethanol to them, yeah, it fools the little specific test that they do for emissions control inspection, smog control, whatever you want to call it. It'll fool that because they're testing a specific range of things. They're not testing for some truly nasty shit that comes out in gasoline exhaust. Diesel, your biggest worry is the soot itself. And the soot itself is not a worry because it's almost pure carbon. It goes back into the ground. It's a wonderful fucking fertilizer. And carbon is a part of every life form on the planet. If you get in a gasoline boat, the krill will never follow you. If you get in a diesel boat, the reason that you have fish following you while you're trolling is because the krill will actually come up and consume the little soot mixing in the diesel exhaust. They're attracted by the warmth and the free food. Don't know why I don't know if they're eating the soot or if they're eating something that likes to hang out on the soot. I don't care. Not my thing. All I know is it happens, and that'll bring fish up. The little krill will bring little bigger critters up, bring fish up, and it all works down the line. You troll long enough, you end up with big fish coming up. Everybody that's ever owned a diesel boat knows this. Well, provided that they fished. Or, as was my case, back in the day, hunting for corals and tropical fish. You know, putt, 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 putt. Oops, there we go. And I studied a few microfish stations along the way. Had a lot of fun with that. Another factor that they don't consider in is the fact that the diesel engine is, you know, CO2 seems to be a big concern to them. There's less CO2 coming out of that diesel engine per gallon because you're not burning as many gallons. So you got the gas engine sucking down 1 gallon, you got the diesel engine of comparable size sucking down 1.8, maybe 2.2 gallons if you got it under a heavy load. The goal here isn't to actually do anything but have a little fun with AOC and make people think, because most people don't look at the details. They look beyond, you know, or they don't look beyond an article. Some echo nutcase, you know, blah, 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 blah. It's just like, you know, the 5G nuts. You've got the 5G nuts out there. They're all saying that, oh, this is dangerous. This is a bad thing. Oh, you know what? I'm more worried about the old 800 megahertz trunking band and the amount of power coming out of those, because 5G is tame. I mean, 5G is the whipped kid in the corner in comparison as far as power output goes. 3G, yeah, even that was an invalid claim of danger. I mean, unless something was really massively high powered and their SWRs were off the scale. 1300 megahertz, yeah, that was kind of a concern. 5G, they're not putting all of these stations out there because they're trying to saturate everybody with 5G waves. Now, they're putting all these stations out there because 5G puts out so low a power that birds will land on it without ever getting harmed. Whereas old 800 megahertz trunking band antenna, if a bird landed on it, it was a miracle. Some of the old HF stations, literally, you could fry meat off of them. We've all had, well, okay, I guess not, but, I shouldn't talk about that. But we've all had an overpowered CB back in the day that you'd key down the mic, you better have a towel if it was a metal mic, because there was enough RF energy coming out of that to burn your hand. We all had one of those CBs pass through our hands at one time, or the linear amplifier that caused that particular effect. Those are dangerous frequencies. And I agree that microwave frequencies are dangerous. All the bikes, everything back in the day, they all came from me being a radar and microwave communications nerd. And it's what I've always been in the background, what I always will be. But the power levels on this 5G shit, that's the reason that they're putting up so many towers, is because at those power levels, it's not going very far. It's not that they want to saturate your ass. They do want to saturate coverage so that, you got coverage when you go from Mom's house to Billy Bob's house. You can talk all the way or whatever. Throwing that in as an illustration, and that's their actual point with all the extra towers or hanging new antennas on old towers. What a fucking joke. Back on AOC and her green energy. Now, this woman a few months ago, well, maybe a couple of years ago, there were a ton of memes after she said something about the methane from cow farts were bad for the environment. And many nutcases, echo nutcases. I'm not going to say Democrats, because I don't know what party they belong to. I just know that there was a bunch of echo nutcases that in those particular groups, they'll latch onto anything and believe it like it was the Bible, even though it's an article by another echo nutcase that copied it off of another echo nutcase that left a few details out. Like the detail about there's a shit ton more humans than there are cows, and we fart methane too. So does every creature on the planet. Oh, but you've got a barn there with cow shit all over the place, and it's emitting methane too. Well, there's a septic tank out back that's emitting methane. Pretty much out back of everybody's house. Maybe not in as high a concentration. And the people that live on dairy farms anyway are generally healthier. Or any farm really, but dairy farms in particular. And dairy farms have the most shit there is, at least as far as cow shit goes. Yeah, she wasn't brilliant with that one. And you notice I'm avoiding some of her political topics. You know, I'm not mentioning anything about she was in a completely different building well away from where the Capitol was taken over and said that, you know, she could have been killed. It's like, I think the Jussie Smollett memes are, you know, comparing her to Jussie Smollett in the memes is somewhat appropriate and funny as hell. And then her fake outrage. Oh God, the fake outrage over the border thing where they had the children supposedly in cages. And it came out later, wait, those cages were put in under Obama's rule, and Trump started to do something about it after he finally found out about them. But at the time that AOC was throwing a fit about it, I don't think he had much time to be in office and even become aware of it. And that's not the only thing that she blamed on Trump that Democrats did or previous Republican. Notice that one wasn't plural. Wonder why. Did. So that's a little fun with AOC. Some of the things that come out of this woman's mouth, I mean, you know that she's not doing any research. She's got to be reading a script. If you think I'm reading a script, no. I've got fucking YouTube on pause. That's all I'm doing. I haven't touched the phone. She's been watching me the whole damn time. And yeah, I watch some crazy weird stuff on YouTube. Mostly I'm playing with stereos and audio these days. There's another thing. Oh shit, she'll probably get me for noise pollution. Alright. Oh well. But what was that other thing that I was trying to remember about her and this green energy? Covered the car. Now the coal plants versus a diesel plant. Yeah, I got to agree. Coal plant bad, diesel plant good. And that's not because I'm a diesel fanatic. It's because I'm familiar with the gases emitted from both. Coal is not so bad. In fact, again, it's safer than burning gasoline. It always has been. But I understand that people don't realize this. And I understand that people don't look at gas. That's in everything. Diesel. Most people don't even know how a diesel engine works. Did you know that? They don't understand that it is the most complete burn possible from fuel. Well, in a piston engine anyway. You can get a more complete burn. That doesn't have as many noxious, lethal emissions as gasoline. Sure, you could burn alcohol, but wait a minute. What comes out of alcohol when you burn it? I'll guarantee it ain't oxygen, and I'll guarantee it produces a lot more carbon dioxide, or is it carbon monoxide? I think it's dioxide, than diesel does. I'd have to look that up again. It's been a long time since I've looked at that. I used to have charts and everything else. But let's go back on motorcycles again. Now, the 5 units that I had made back in the day, they were diesel, and they were 2 liters. They were horizontally opposed, 8-cylinder, 2-liter diesel. It basically looked like either a bastardized Goldwing or an oversized Beamer, take your pick. But they were a full-size tour bike. They were incredibly comfortable. They got 140 miles to the gallon. Now that Goldwing out front gets about 40 if it's lucky. My new Goldwing gets about 30, 35 around town. I'll get about 35, 37 on the highway, maybe. if I keep it down below about 80, 85 mile an hour. Yeah, oh shit, that's more than the 70 mile an hour speed limit in Florida. No, you get out here on 75 on a motorcycle and all these cars are doing 80, 85 mile an hour. You do it too, because these dumb fucks will run you over. This is Florida, home of drunk Yankees here on vacation. Don't take chances. Blend in with traffic, whatever they're doing, do it. If the cop wants to give you a ticket, eat it, or be aware that in the state of Florida, unless you're leaving the scene of a felony, this does not apply to cars, they can only chase a motorcycle a half a mile before they have to break pursuit. Now that doesn't stop them from waiting on you at the house with a ticket. You know, they could probably get you I don't know if that's a felony or a misdemeanor for ditching them, but they never bother you if you ditch them. I think they kind of just count it as fun. I'm not really sure. I think they understand that, you know, you're rolling down the interstate, you got semis around you, you got cars twice your size around you. They don't care if you're a few miles over, as long as you're blending in with traffic and you're not passing everybody. They leave you alone. That's how it works. That's how it's always been. But 140 miles to the gallon is substantially more than these gas engine bikes ever get. This one behind me, were it put back together right now, it would be lucky to get 12, maybe 20 miles to the gallon if you really babied it. It's another gas pig. The Boost is not really a gas pig. Let's go for a good one. The first generation VT1000F, the one that became the RC51, two big 52 millimeter carbs on it. Had a big gas tank because it needed it. That thing only got 20 or 22 miles to the gallon. And I've had 3 or 4 of those pass through my hands. I had one that I actually rode for a few weeks. Loved the bike, and all of Honda's claims about they will outperform a Ducati are true. In every area except for fuel mileage. Pass every Ducati there is, unless it's a Ducati gas station. I can't think of anything funnier for that. Diesel outboards. Let's get into those. Now, Yanmar D36 pulls the same propeller at the same RPM as 115 horse Yamaha gasoline engines. Now, I did this back in the 2-stroke days. I understand the 4-stroke gasoline engines are more efficient, but it's been a while since we've been able to get diesel outboards in the United States without bringing in pieces and parts and putting them together ourselves, because you're not going to get an entire unit through customs. You'll get pieces and parts through customs, no problem. But that 115 Yamaha Saltwater Series 2 was burning 5-6 gallons an hour at the speeds that I usually ran. That little Yanmar D36 pulling the same prop, moving the same boat at the same speed, actually a little bit better speed. I was burning 1.2, 1.8 gallons an hour if I had all the cameras down. 1.2 gallons an hour, same speed as the 115, sucking down 5, possibly 6, I know at least 5 gallons an hour. 1.8 gallons an hour at the worst with that little Yanmar D36. I've had D27s as well. D27s I was never impressed with. The D36 I was impressed with. So, you know, I mean, it's kind of more than an idiot point, more of a be able to pick on her point, because when you talk about renewable energy, biodiesel is a lot easier to make than alcohol. It requires a lot less resources to make than alcohol. I mean, you can do it with French fry grease, olive oil. You got diesel engines running on fucking, what the hell was that? Peanut oil. Um, really easy to make. Doesn't require as many resources. And you can actually make a hell of a hemp-based diesel fuel just from the stalks and still use the good parts of the hemp plant for, you know, whatever medical stuff or just a good salad too. So that's a renewable energy that would actually work. And you don't end out with windmill blades in landfills that can't be destroyed. They're going to be there for 5,000 or 6,000 years before they ever break down and become a part of the earth again. Whereas that diesel engine, it's going to break down in, yeah, maybe 100 years, a couple hundred years, who knows. But substantially less than that. The iron's going to break down substantially faster than the fiberglass is. Simple as that. And you don't have lithium, depleted lithium, going back into the earth. You don't have huge lithium mines destroying the earth. Now, I was around when they shut down that mine in Butte, Montana. And I don't know if there's any pictures floating around on the web or not. I'm not going to look. But that was a nasty fucking mess for years. And I've seen a couple other coal mines. And a lithium mine is every bit as bad, if not worse, because you're exposing lithium to the air. Let's Google what lithium does to the human body. And think about, you know, wow, we're releasing lithium dust and lithium ions, keyword lithium ions, into the air. What does a lithium ion do to the body? Every time we rip open one of those big mines. And cobalt, the same thing. But the dangers of depleted lithium in the earth are extreme. Those solar cells, you've got all kinds of dead solar panels, everything from mylar to selenium, going back into the ground. It's not just silicone to make glass. There's a little bit more to it there, folks. And she never mentions, none of these green freaks mention the dangers of disposing that stuff. They never mention the extended ramifications of what they're talking about. They never mention that so far all of these green technology, even Elon Musk, the guy who owns Tesla Motors, I don't know if he owns it anymore, but I know he's a honcho with them, or was, in some of his previous works has said, yeah, you know, it might not be so wise to mine all this lithium. And he mentioned cobalt. And I haven't read very much of his work. He's not one that I would follow just because it's outside of my area of interest. But I've read a little bit here and there. So in this, I haven't made it very funny, which was the original intent. I'm sorry. I at least did try to make it funny. But I have mentioned some of AOC's shortcomings. And I know that she hates that. I also know that she'll probably never see this video, so it's safe to put it out there on YouTube. And I've given you something to think about. I'm not saying I'm right. In fact, I encourage you to go actually look stuff up. Skip the articles and do some real, actual research. Throw the articles to the side for a few days. Do some actual research. And pay attention to the details, because most people don't pay attention to the details. And for those of you who understand my sense of humor, details come into play in this video. There's something very funny in the room that you've been seeing the whole time, if you know me. Anyway, we'll holler at y'all later.